They exist. I know, I was surprised too. It's almost like when your game relies on community-made levels, the vast majority of them are going to be not good. But you know what? Everyone starts somewhere, and there's no point in focusing on these bad levels when there's tens of thousands of masterpieces that you could be experiencing instead. But at the same time, it's content.
How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be playing levels from the Recent tab. I sure hope there aren't any bad ones.
Lately, I've been thinking a lot about the bad levels in Geometry Dash, because at the end of the day, it's a big part of the game's culture. Sure, you could just not play them, but what about the map pack levels that you need to suffer through for some extra coins? Or the world's smallest violin shorts that get millions of views? Or maybe there's a demon level that you just don't like. You can ignore these levels all you want, but they are there and they are popular. Sometimes more so than levels that actually deserve that kind of spotlight. But what's the worst level in Geometry Dash? Like the absolute lowest of low. I've wanted to solve this for a long time, but there are literally tens of millions of levels out there. I was thinking of going off some criteria, like maybe it's the most disliked rated level in the game, which is this auto level with various obstacles that probably came out back when nearly every level uploaded to the servers got rated. Or maybe we can go by download to dislike ratio, which led me to this strange 2-player level. In reality, there just aren't any good ways to conclusively find a single worst level for the game. So I think the best answer to this question is another question. Do I look like Map Pat to you? Seriously, why am I wasting my time trying to find some earth-shattering evidence when the worst level is very obviously Generation Retro? This is the final level of the Poison Gauntlet, which means that 5 million people were forced to play through it, and 5 million therapists were probably called shortly after. Seriously, this level is terrible. Just skip it, hack it even. Nobody has to know. So, where did it all go wrong? The year is 1978. Arcade games like Pong and Breakout have taken the world by storm, and Japanese game developer Tomohiro Nishikado was determined to make the most captivating and groundbreaking gaming experience yet. Inspired by the block-breaking mechanics of Breakout as well as science fiction stories like Star Wars, he worked tirelessly to develop a 3-button shooter game known as Space Invaders. The way it worked was simple. A horde of aliens are making their way towards the bottom of the screen, and you have to destroy them all while dodging their bullets. The game ended up being a massive success, and before you knew it, people everywhere were flocking to arcades to give it a try. Space Invaders would go on to be one of the most influential video games of all time, and a massive turning point in the history of gaming. Anyways, fast forward to late 2015, and a Spanish Geometry Dash creator by the name of Arazza woke up one morning and felt like tarnishing the game's entire legacy. Thankfully, 4 years later, it was restored by MDK and Teminite. Everywhere you look in Generation Retro, there's aliens from Space Invaders. In fact, there's even a section where they make up the gameplay itself. So really, there's no denying that the game had a huge influence on this level. Of course, Generation Retro isn't the first level to do the whole Space Invaders thing. I'm sure the first one to come to mind is Retray, which came out a few months prior in Update 1.9, and is currently the most liked level in the entire game. And these little aliens showed up in lots of other 1.9 levels, like Hyper Arcade and Uninstalled. The pixel art was easy to make and super recognizable, so really, why not? Generation Retro definitely took it a step further, though, because the entire level is themed around these aliens, even if there's no direct mention of Space Invaders. But this just begs the question, why is it in the Poison Gauntlet? Remember, this level was handpicked over thousands of other potential candidates. I know the early gauntlets don't stick to their name all that well, but that's because most of the levels in them just aren't themed. Generation Retro very clearly is, and the only conclusion I can draw is that it was put in the Poison Gauntlet because the level is green, like the Shard. And maybe it's because of the boss fight since it's the final level of the Gauntlet, but Fire's got one on level 1, so who knows. Oh yeah, spoilers, there's a boss fight. By the way, Gauntlet's released in 2017, and this level came out in 2015, so it's not like RobTop pulled a random new featured level or something. This one stood out to him, and this is the creator's only rated level, so they weren't like well known. I know I said that if a level is bad, you don't have to play it, but this one is genuinely forced onto you. By putting it in a Gauntlet, the level is officially endorsed and part of the game's core progression. If you're not familiar with Gauntlets, there are collections of 5 developer-picked levels that you play through for cool rewards. Map packs just give you coins, which you don't need after a certain point, but this Gauntlet has an unlockable player color tied to it, so you're really encouraged to give it a shot. And that's why I think this is the worst level. Not only is it an absolute train wreck, for reasons we'll get into, but it's forced onto you. It's forever cemented as part of official Geometry Dash. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, but Craig, what about Scarlet Surge? Shut up! No, like seriously, what do people have against Scarlet Surge? I played through it, and it's fine. My only real complaint is that it's long, and while the gameplay is perfectly fair and readable, it isn't all that interesting. Also, the level has a lot of flashing lights, making it a potential nightmare for photosensitive players, so picking it for the most important gauntlet in the game is extremely inconsiderate on RobTop's end. But either way, I had a decent time with this level, and I stand by it. So I'm sure by now you're dying to know what it is that I hate so much about Generation Retro. So let's play through the level, and I'll walk you through it. The level opens with a black screen and some blinking text that says insert coin. Obviously you don't actually have to do this, it's just a cute callback to old arcade games. Like Space Invaders. Your icon slides in from the side of the screen, and Boss Fight's 2015 Hood Classic Glitch Gremlin fades in from exactly 192 seconds. The name of the song is apparently a reference to this character from the Angry Video Game Nerd YouTube series. If you're not cultured, it's basically a web show where this guy plays bad games for content and makes jokes about them.
That's a stupid idea.
So initially the level is pitch black, but when you hit the first jump pad, all the decorations appear. It sets this cool cyber retro theme, and you've got these Space Invaders aliens plastered everywhere because world building. I wouldn't say that the art style is a weak point for this level, but it is very copy and paste, and there's all sorts of clashing decorations that don't go well with each other, like the glowing blocks and the spinning whirlwind things. Also, do you notice something about the pixel art? It's got these weird diagonal lines slicing through it, and I can guarantee you, this is not a style choice. What you're seeing here is someone who did not know that the editor has pixel blocks, so instead they use this little square-shaped 3D decoration since it's the next best thing. This was a pretty common practice back in 1.9, but it immediately became obsolete after that since scaling and pixel blocks were added. And it's very unlikely that the level was started in 1.9 since the first click of the entire level is a green orb. So yeah, the level is completely themed around these pixel aliens, and they're not even built right! Speaking of that green orb, if you don't hit the blue one directly after it, you just fly off the map. This is a pretty innocent mistake that's present in a lot of levels, but I kid you not, every single gravity change in this level has that problem. There are 0 ceiling spikes or saws anywhere in the level, which means that if you miss a jump while upside down, you either have to wait a couple seconds or pause the game and manually restart, which is a feature that isn't even on by default for whatever reason. It's stuff like this that makes it extremely clear that this level had next to 0 playtesting, and there is infinitely more proof to back that up. For example, if you don't buffer all 3 of these orbs, there's a pretty good chance that you'll overshoot on the yellow orb and die to this genius structure. I guess I should also address the lore of this level. It'll pick up further on, but for now we're introduced to this angry red alien with eyes that break the rules of pixel art. He welcomes you to the level, and that's about it for now. But he'll be really important later, trust me. Shortly after his epic introduction, you're hit with an invisible mini portal that causes you to bounce lower on this jump pad, and then you hit another invisible portal that changes you back. Right off the bat, I have so many questions. Why are the portals invisible? Why is there a mini portal anyways? Why are you immediately changed back before you even make a single click? For some reason, lots of levels used to have invisible mini portals like this, and I've never understood why. Like, it doesn't add anything to the level, it's just a brief loss of control and an extra layer of confusion. And in the context of this level, it doesn't even sync to the music, it's just kind of unexplainably there. Well, actually, maybe not as unexplainable as this random fading block. I think the intent is that it's supposed to save you if you decide to leap off this block for whatever reason, but that raises even more questions. Like, why was this accounted for, but not the orb timings at the start? Why was a fading block used instead of shifting around the gameplay? And what makes this jump so important in the first place? If you want to allow jumping here, this block is like the worst possible solution because of how much it clashes with the rest of the level's style. There could have at least been an effort to make it look like part of the regular gameplay, but nope, apparently that's too much work for old Aratsa. By the way, we're like 5% into the level so far, I just figured I'd point that out. There's this blue pad a little bit after that launches you up to some platforms which are barely out of the camera, meaning it's not a jump, but it's still super doable. It's worth bringing up though, since there are going to be much worse ones later down. And in case you're not familiar with the term, a blind jump is essentially any jump where you're unable to see what's up ahead. For example, if I were to put a jump directly after a long drop downwards, it would be considered blind because you don't have any time to process it. Moving on, there's a whole bunch of blue pads here building up to the song's drop, and the level is even friendly enough to remind you of its name. This part is fine for a build-up, but I would tweak this last bit right before the drop since I think it's a little awkward. After the bass kicks, you enter a robot part, and it's definitely something. More specifically, jank. It flows poorly, and all the jumps feel kind of weird. You'd also expect some new decoration and effects after the drop, but it's still the same old aliens and green stuff. Of course, I have to highlight this random key, which is completely unmissable and unlocks a door directly next to it. This could have been a cool idea, but it's the only key door in the entire level, so it's such a random addition. Like, what is the key providing here other than added confusion? Technically, Meltdown did this with the 7 Cs, but at least there it syncs with the music and feels like a gateway to the real level. This key is sort of just here. And it goes even deeper, because the key is pixelated, but the keyhole isn't. So they don't even look like they match up. And get this, the key uses pixel blocks! So for some reason, all the aliens are built with the ugly 3D tile, while this random key is the only pixel art in the level to actually be assembled correctly.